You wake up after 8 full hours, but your mouth feels like cotton, your throat is scratchy, and your brain feels wrapped in fog. Sound familiar? Maybe you notice the snoring gets worse on your back, or you catch yourself gasping with a dry cough in the middle of the night. Here's the strange part. You never decided to breathe through your mouth. It just happens. So why does your mouth pop open on its own at night? And why does it leave you feeling wrecked? That's the mystery we're solving today. Here's the clue hiding in plain sight. Snoring that worsens on your back, a dry cough that wakes you, a throat that feels raw with no cold in sight. These are not separate annoyances. They are pieces of the same pattern, all pointing to one thing: your airway struggling to move air the easy way, through your nose. And here's what makes this strange. Breathing is the one job your body never leaves to chance while you sleep. So the moment your nose becomes a difficult path, something else has to open. What is that backup system, and how does it decide when to take over? Let's start at the exact moment sleep begins, because that's where this whole chain kicks off. The instant you lie down, something shifts. All day, your throat and jaw muscles carry a quiet tension, holding the airway open without you ever thinking about it. But sleep is like an off switch for that tension. Those muscles let go. The soft tissue around your throat softens and slackens, and gravity gets a vote it didn't have while you were upright. This is exactly why snoring so often gets worse when you roll onto your back. Lying flat lets that relaxed tissue sag backward, right into the airway, turning a quiet breath into a vibrating, rattling one. Your body isn't malfunctioning here, it's just responding to the pull of gravity on tissue that's no longer holding its daytime shape. That's step one. But relaxed throat muscles alone don't fully explain the mouth popping open. For that, we need to look somewhere else entirely. At the very same time this is happening in your throat, your nose is dealing with its own quiet drama. Nasal passages are not fixed, rigid tubes. They are lined with tissue that can swell, narrow, or shift depending on allergies, congestion, temperature, even the natural cycle your nostrils go through every few hours. So while your throat is relaxing, your nose might be simultaneously narrowing, making that pathway harder to move air through. This is why a stuffy nose at night doesn't always come from being sick. Sometimes it's just swelling or structural narrowing quietly increasing resistance, even when nothing is technically wrong with you. Picture trying to breathe through a straw that's slightly pinched. You can still get air through, but it takes more effort, more pressure, more work for the same result. Now you have two things happening at once: a looser, more collapsible throat, and a nose that's becoming a tougher route for air. That combination is the real trigger, and this is where the mystery starts to resolve. Because breathing is not optional, not even for a second, not even while you're unconscious. The body has a built-in failsafe. If the nose becomes too much resistance to reliably move air through, the body does not hesitate or negotiate. It automatically opens an alternate route: the mouth. This is the backup switch we've been circling since the beginning. It's not a habit, it's not poor posture. It's not something you're doing wrong. It's an automatic reflex prioritizing one single goal above all else: keep oxygen coming in, by any path necessary. So the moment nasal resistance crosses a certain threshold, the jaw drops slightly, the lips part, and air starts moving through the mouth instead. You never decide this, you're asleep, but your brainstem, the part of you that never fully powers down, decides for you. Now the central mystery from the beginning has an answer. The mouth doesn't just wander open randomly. It opens because your nose became a harder path, and your body chose the guaranteed one instead. So here's where we are. Relaxed throat muscles plus a narrowed nose forces this automatic switch to mouth breathing. That's the trigger fully explained. But knowing why the switch flips doesn't yet explain why mornings feel so rough. That's the next question, and it's just as important as the first, because mouth breathing isn't a neutral substitute for nose breathing. It skips almost everything your nose quietly handles in the background every single night. Your nose filters incoming air, catching particles before they reach deeper tissue. It warms the air, so your throat isn't hit with something cold and irritating. It humidifies the air, adding moisture so tissue doesn't dry out, and it produces nitric oxide, a compound tied to supporting airflow and oxygen exchange during sleep. When air bypasses the nose completely and moves through the mouth instead, none of that happens. The air arrives dry, unfiltered, unwarmed, and a mouth held open for hours, with saliva evaporating and no natural moisture replenishing it, is exactly why you wake up with that cotton-like dryness, and exactly why your throat feels raw and scratchy, with no cold or illness in sight. This isn't random bad luck, it's the direct physical cost of the detour your airway took overnight. But dryness isn't the only cost. When the mouth stays open and airway pressure shifts, it changes the physical support inside your throat. Nasal breathing helps maintain a kind of internal pressure that keeps things properly positioned. Without it, the tongue can slide backward, drifting toward the back of the throat, and partially blocking the airway. This is often what's behind those moments of waking up briefly gasping, or with a sudden dry cough you don't remember starting. Your airway experienced a brief squeeze, and your body startled itself awake just enough to fix it, then usually drifted right back to sleep, leaving no clear memory behind. And this is where the real cost shows up. All of this, the drying, the pressure shifts, the tongue drifting, the brief awakenings, adds up to something bigger, a brain that gets nudged into lighter, more fragmented sleep. Even if you're in bed for a full 8 hours, your brain isn't spending that time the way it should. It's being interrupted again and again, often too briefly for you to consciously notice, which is exactly why you can wake up having technically slept a full night and still feel like none of it counted. And here's the twist. This isn't the same every single night. On nights when nasal narrowing is mild, your body might only dip into mouth breathing briefly. But on nights when it's more severe, congestion from allergies or lying flat on your back, the mouth stays open longer, and the disruption compounds, which raises the next real question. If nasal narrowing is really driving this whole chain, is there a way to influence that resistance before you even fall asleep? So if nasal resistance is really the trigger behind all of this, there has to be a flip side, and there is. It's almost embarrassingly simple. When the nose is clear and air moves through it easily, there's no emergency to respond to. No resistance, no backup switch, no reason for the mouth to take over. The whole system that forces your mouth open is built around a single condition. Is the nose doing its job well enough right now? That means you're not dealing with some unfixable flaw in how you sleep. You're dealing with one lever, one condition that either invites the switch or leaves it alone. So here's where that becomes useful tonight, not someday, tonight. Before you lie down, spend a few minutes just breathing slowly through your nose, lips gently closed, nothing forced, nothing dramatic. Just quiet, steady nasal breaths for a few minutes before sleep. What you're doing here is giving your body a head start. You're cueing the nervous system toward the nasal pathway right as those throat muscles begin to loosen, instead of letting the mouth default open the moment resistance shows up. Think of it like leaving a door propped open before a crowd arrives, rather than waiting for the crowd to shove it open themselves. But on some nights, this alone might not be enough, and that's worth naming honestly. If congestion is part of the picture, allergies, dry indoor air, a stuffy nose that shows up out of nowhere, then the resistance isn't coming from habit, it's coming from the nose itself being physically narrowed. On those nights, something as simple as a humidifier adding moisture to the air, or a saline rinse to clear the passage, can reduce that resistance before it ever has the chance to trigger the switch. You're not fixing a flaw. You're just removing the specific condition that forces the backup system to activate in the first place. And this brings us back to something worth sitting with for a second. The mouth opening at night was never a sign that your body was broken, or lazy, or doing something wrong while you slept. It was your body protecting the one function it refuses to compromise on, getting air in, no matter what. That reflex has probably been running quietly in the background for years, adjusting itself night after night without you ever noticing the switch happen. It's not a flaw to feel embarrassed about. It's a survival system doing exactly what it was built to do. So what should you actually expect if you try this? Not a dramatic transformation overnight, and not a guaranteed fix, because everyone's airway, congestion, and sleep position are different. What's worth doing instead is simply noticing. Over the next several nights, pay attention to small things. Does the cottonmouth feeling seem a little less intense when you wake up? Does that scratchy, sore throat show up quite as often? Does the fog in your head on waking feel like it lifts a touch faster than usual? These aren't promises. They're just the same signals you already know intimately. Dry mouth, sore throat, morning fog, now framed as things to watch rather than mysteries to just live with. That's really the whole shift here. You go from waking up parched and foggy with no explanation to understanding there's a real mechanism behind it, one shaped by muscles relaxing, a nose narrowing, and a backup system stepping in exactly when it's needed. You can't control every variable, but you can influence the one that matters most, how much resistance your nose is dealing with the moment your body starts to drift off. So tonight, before you close your eyes, give your nose a few minutes to lead the way, breathing slow, lips gently closed, no pressure, no performance. Just a small window where you're nudging your body toward the quieter path instead of the emergency one. And in the morning, notice what's different, not because it's guaranteed to change everything, but because now, finally, you know exactly what you're paying attention to.